Not all at once, not because someone warned you, and not because there was undeniable proof. In the quiet moments, the moments you tried to explain away, the uneasy feeling you couldn't quite name, the knot in your stomach after a conversation, the exhaustion you felt after spending time with them, the voice inside you that whispered, "Something isn't right," but another voice. One that sounded more reasonable, more compassionate, more hopeful, always answered back. Maybe I'm overreacting. Maybe they're just having a hard time. Maybe I need to be more patient. So, you stayed. Why do intelligent people, kind people, compassionate people, talk themselves out of what they already know? Why does intuition whisper, while reason builds a defense case for staying? Why do we trust our logic more than our own experience? Carl Jung believed these questions could never be answered by intelligence alone, because intelligence lives in the conscious mind. But many of the choices that shape our lives begin somewhere much deeper, in the unconscious. Perhaps you've asked yourself, how could I have stayed so long? Maybe you felt embarrassed, ashamed, or angry with yourself. But what if you weren't irrational? What if you were unconscious? There is an enormous difference, because irrational people ignore reality. The unconscious mind quietly rewrites it, not to deceive us, but to protect us. At least, that's what it believes it's doing. And to understand why, we have to journey beneath the surface of the mind, into one of Carl Jung's most profound discoveries, the hidden world, that quietly shapes our decisions, long before we ever realize we're making them. The greatest danger was never that you couldn't see the red flags. The greatest danger was believing you needed a reason to trust what you already felt. Because sometimes, the first voice that speaks is the wisest one. If intelligence helps us solve problems, why doesn't it protect us from staying in them? The answer may surprise you, because intelligence and self-awareness are not the same thing. Most of us secretly believe something. We believe that if we're intelligent enough, educated enough, insightful enough, we'll make good decisions. It feels logical. After all, knowledge protects us. Experience teaches us. Reason guides us. Except life keeps giving us examples that challenge this belief. Brilliant doctors remain in unhealthy marriages. Successful executives stay in toxic workplaces. Therapists struggle with destructive relationships. Psychologists have blind spots. Even Carl Jung himself wrote about the unconscious forces that shape every human life, including his own. Why? Because intelligence lives in one part of the mind, while many of our deepest choices begin somewhere else entirely. Imagine standing in front of a beautiful old house. The rooms upstairs are bright, orderly, organized. That's your conscious mind. It's where logic lives. Reason, analysis, planning, decision-making. But beneath that house, hidden below the floorboards, is an enormous basement. Dark, ancient, filled with memories, emotions, childhood experiences, old fears, forgotten hopes, and unconscious beliefs. Carl Jung believed we spend much of our lives believing we're living from the upstairs rooms, when, in reality, the basement quietly influences almost everything we do. Not because we're weak, because we're human. One of Jung's most influential ideas was something he called the persona. Think of it as the version of yourself the world has learned to recognize. The dependable one, the loyal one, the peacemaker, the achiever, the woman who always gives people another chance, the friend who never gives up on anyone. At first, these identities seem beautiful, and often they are. The problem begins when the persona becomes more important than the person wearing it. Imagine someone whose identity has become, "I'm the loyal one." Now imagine that same person realizes they're in an unhealthy relationship. Leaving doesn't simply mean ending the relationship. It threatens their identity. Because somewhere inside, another voice whispers, "Loyal people don't leave." Now the conflict isn't just external, it's internal. This is why change can feel so frightening. Not because we don't know what to do, but because doing it would force us to question who we believe ourselves to be. Perhaps you've heard yourself say things like, "I'm just the kind of person who sees the good in everyone. I don't give up on people. I'm willing to fight for relationships." Again, beautiful qualities, until they become excuses, because every virtue can become a shadow. When it's disconnected from wisdom, loyalty without discernment becomes self-abandonment. Compassion without boundaries becomes self-sacrifice. Forgiveness without accountability becomes permission. The unconscious has a remarkable ability to disguise fear as virtue. Here's where things become fascinating. Imagine your intuition as a quiet witness. It steps into the courtroom and says, "Something feels wrong." Then your intellect stands up, not as the judge, but as the defense attorney. It begins presenting evidence. He's had a difficult childhood. She's under enormous pressure. No relationship is perfect. People make mistakes. Maybe I'm expecting too much. Notice what just happened. Your intelligence didn't protect you. It built a compelling argument against your own intuition. That doesn't make intelligence the enemy. It simply means intelligence serves whatever beliefs already exist beneath the surface. And if those beliefs were formed in fear, your intellect becomes incredibly skilled at protecting them. Empathy is one of humanity's greatest gifts. The ability to understand another person's pain is beautiful, necessary, sacred. But empathy becomes dangerous. When it replaces discernment, there's a profound difference between understanding why someone behaves the way they do and believing that understanding obligates you to remain where you're being harmed. You can understand someone's wounds without becoming responsible for healing them. You can love someone without abandoning yourself. You can forgive someone without giving them unlimited access to your life. These truths sound simple, yet they become incredibly difficult when the unconscious is convinced that love must be earned. Perhaps this is why the most important question isn't, "Why did they treat me this way?" Or even, "Why didn't I leave?" The deeper question is, what belief inside me made staying feel safer than leaving? Because every decision has two stories. The story we tell ourselves, and the story our unconscious has been writing for years. Jung believed healing begins when those two stories finally meet. So if intelligence isn't enough, and if the persona can quietly keep us trapped, then what exactly is happening beneath the surface? Why does one person leave after the first red flag, while another stays for years? The answer isn't found in logic. It's found in one of Carl Jung's most misunderstood ideas: the shadow. Because sometimes, the part of us choosing the relationship isn't the conscious adult at all. It's the unseen child within us, still searching for something it never received. If intelligence isn't enough, and if the persona quietly convinces us to remain loyal to identities that no longer serve us, then another question naturally follows. Why do some people walk away after the first warning, while others stay for years, even when they know they're unhappy? Carl Jung believed the answer wasn't found in the relationship itself. It was hidden inside the relationship we have with ourselves. Because beneath every conscious choice, there is often an unconscious longing. And until we understand that longing, we mistake it for love. The shadow is one of Carl Jung's most misunderstood ideas. Many people imagine it as the dark side of the personality. Anger, jealousy, greed, fear. Those things certainly live there. But Jung believed something far more surprising. The shadow also contains the parts of ourselves we abandoned, simply because we believed they were unacceptable. Your confidence, your anger, your voice, your boundaries, your needs, your dreams, even your ability to walk away. Sometimes, the strongest part of you is hiding in the shadow. Imagine a little girl. She runs to show someone a drawing she's proud of. Without looking up, the adult says, "Not right now." Another day, she cries because her feelings are hurt. Someone responds, "You're too sensitive." Later, she asks for comfort. Instead, she hears, "Stop being dramatic." None of these moments seem life-changing. But childhood isn't built from one moment. It's built from thousands of moments, tiny moments, repeated over years. Eventually, the child reaches a quiet conclusion. If I need less, if I'm easier, if I become more understanding, maybe then I'll be loved. That conclusion rarely disappears. It simply grows up with us. One of the most unsettling truths in psychology is that human beings often confuse familiarity with safety. Think about that. Something can hurt us and still feel familiar. Something can be unhealthy and still feel like home. Why? Because the nervous system isn't always asking, "Is this good for me?" Sometimes it's asking, "Have I survived this before?" If criticism was familiar, criticism can feel strangely normal. If inconsistency was familiar, consistency can feel suspicious. If love had to be earned, healthy love may actually feel uncomfortable. Not because it's wrong, because it's unfamiliar. Carl Jung believed we don't simply see people, we project onto them. We see possibilities, potential, dreams. We don't fall in love only with who someone is. Sometimes, we fall in love with the story we've begun writing about them. Once he heals, once work gets less stressful, once she realizes how much I care, once they finally choose me. Notice something. None of those statements describe reality. They describe hope. Hope is beautiful, but hope without evidence can become denial. Have you ever noticed that some people stay deeply committed to someone's future while completely neglecting their present? We become emotionally attached, not to who the person consistently shows themselves to be, but to the version we believe they could become. This creates a painful cycle. Every kind gesture becomes proof that change is coming. Every apology becomes another beginning. Every promise resets the clock. Until one day, you realize you've spent years loving someone's potential while quietly grieving their reality. Every time your intuition whispers, "That hurt," and you respond, "It's not a big deal," something happens. Every time your body says, "This doesn't feel safe," and your mind replies, "I'm probably overthinking," something happens. Every time you betray your own inner voice, you teach yourself that your experience cannot be trusted. That is one of the deepest wounds a person can carry. Not because someone else stopped believing you, but because you stopped believing yourself. Healing rarely begins with the relationship. It begins with a moment, a quiet moment, sometimes while driving home, sometimes lying awake at night, sometimes washing dishes. Nothing dramatic happens, no great revelation, only one small realization. I'm exhausted. I don't recognize myself anymore. I've spent more energy explaining this relationship than actually enjoying it. That moment is sacred, because for the first time, your attention shifts away from changing them toward understanding yourself. And that is where individuation begins. Perhaps the relationship was never asking, "Can you love them?" Perhaps it was asking, "Can you finally love yourself enough to believe your own experience?" Because every red flag eventually becomes a mirror, not reflecting our intelligence, but reflecting our relationship with ourselves. If that's true, then healing isn't about becoming better at spotting unhealthy people. It's about becoming someone who no longer negotiates with her own intuition. So how do we begin? How do we rebuild trust after years of explaining away what we already knew? The answer isn't found in becoming suspicious of everyone. It's found in learning to become trustworthy to yourself. If you've stayed with me this far, you may have noticed something. This video was never really about red flags. It was about something much deeper. The quiet ways we learn not to believe ourselves. Because every time you override your intuition, a relationship isn't the only thing that changes. Your relationship with yourself changes too. The question becomes, how do we rebuild it? Fortunately, the unconscious isn't our enemy. It isn't trying to destroy us. It's trying to protect us, using strategies that may have helped us once, but no longer serve us today. Healing begins when we stop fighting ourselves and begin listening. Practice 1. Listen before you explain. The next time something feels wrong, pause before explaining it, before defending it, before minimizing it. Simply ask yourself, what did I feel before my mind started telling the story? Notice the order. Your body usually speaks first, your intellect speaks second. Neither is perfect. But for many people, the body has been waiting years to finally be believed. Practice 2. Trust patterns, not promises. 1 apology can be sincere. 2 apologies can still be human. But eventually, patterns begin speaking louder than intentions. Maya Angelou once said, "When someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time." That doesn't mean people never change. People absolutely can change. But genuine change isn't announced. It's demonstrated consistently over time. Healthy relationships are built on repeated behavior, not repeated promises. Practice 3. Separate compassion from responsibility. This may be one of the hardest lessons you'll ever learn. You can understand someone's childhood without accepting their mistreatment. You can understand someone's trauma without becoming responsible for healing it. You can love someone deeply and still decide they cannot remain close to you. Compassion and boundaries are not opposites. In fact, healthy compassion requires healthy boundaries. Otherwise, compassion quietly becomes self-neglect. Practice 4. Begin a conversation with your shadow. Jung never asked us to destroy the shadow. He invited us to meet it. Instead of asking, "Why do I always choose people like this?" try asking, "What part of me felt at home here?" Instead of asking, "What's wrong with me?" ask, "What younger version of me is still trying to solve an old problem?" Those questions change everything, because shame shuts down curiosity. But curiosity opens the door to healing. Practice 5. Become someone you can trust. Perhaps the most important relationship you'll ever have isn't with another person, it's with yourself. Imagine making yourself a simple promise. The next time something feels deeply wrong, I won't argue against myself. Not because you'll always be correct, but because your experience deserves to be heard. Trust isn't built by never making mistakes. Trust is built when you consistently show yourself that your voice matters. Every boundary you keep, every uncomfortable truth you acknowledge, every time you walk away from what diminishes you, you send your unconscious a new message. I will protect you now. That may be one of the most healing sentences your inner child will ever hear. Perhaps you never lacked intelligence. Perhaps you never lacked strength. Perhaps you never even lacked intuition. Perhaps you simply spent years believing that everyone else's reality was more trustworthy than your own. Carl Jung believed that the privilege of a lifetime is becoming who you truly are, not who fear convinced you to become, not who childhood expected you to become, not who guilt manipulated you into becoming, but who you are when you finally stop abandoning yourself. Because the day you begin trusting your own inner voice isn't just the day you stop ignoring red flags. It's the day you stop becoming one to yourself. The goal was never to become better at reading other people. The goal was to become someone who no longer needs permission, to believe what she already knows. Because your intuition was never asking you to become suspicious. It was asking you to come home. If this conversation resonated with you, I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever looked back on a relationship, a friendship, or a job and realized, I knew? Share your story in the comments. You never know whose healing might begin because you are willing to tell the truth. If you enjoy thoughtful explorations of Carl Jung, shadow work, depth psychology, in the lifelong journey toward authenticity, subscribe to the Sovereign Path. Every week, we explore the hidden forces that shape our lives, not so we can fear them, but so we can finally become free. Until next time, keep walking your sovereign path.